Um, Good day, everyone. So today we are going to be looking at a pipeline, building a pipeline, specifically an ETL pipeline, extract, transform, load pipeline, um, as a data analyst. So although building of pipelines are considered a data engineering um, part of a data engineering workflow, but um, sometimes um, as a data analyst you might want to um, build an ETL pipeline, and so I got this off LinkedIn, and I felt maybe we should uh, build something like this. So the first is getting the data source. So the data source can be from the internet or can be a CSV output. Um, then you would build a Python script that would transform this data source into most likely a data frame, and this data frame would now be converted into a table um, in a database, and then we are going to connect with some database, Postgres, SQL, uh, SQLite, Microsoft SQL Server, or um, MySQL, and then we are now going to connect a visualization tool like a Power BI, connect it to this particular database, and we'll do some form of visualization. So the goal is to give us an idea of what this ETL pipeline is. I'm not going to be doing a lot of visualization, as the data source as the data I'm going to get will be for online. I wouldn't know the requirements for that particular data. Um, so I may not be doing a lot of visualization. However, I'll just show us how to build and make all of these connections. That's the goal of today. The idea is to give us um, a simulation of how we would use different tools to achieve a particular result. So we would use Python to get the data source, do some cleaning and transformation in the particular format we want, what column we don't want. The next is would now transfer it to a SQL database, and then connect the SQL database to a visualization tool and Power BI. So you can see Power BI, SQL. This is a SQL query, Python, the internet, or a CSV file. As a data analyst, we are, to most extent, especially in 2024, at least would have a some working knowledge of how this tool work. And so we're just going to show how we integrate this, to how these different tools will do handshake, and to achieve um, a pipeline workflow, specifically an ETL pipeline workflow. And so first of all, we are going to start with the internet, and so I could decide to browse let's see where to get data, but I know of a particular uh, site, marvinanalytics.io. They have data sets that you guys can actually use. You can preview these data sets, and you so want uh, so let me look for This is video game. I really don't know what this. Oh, I think we've worked on this data set before, but I am really interested. Um, let's see the dictionary. Oh, okay, so this is the table, the different table header and their description. Uh, so it's saying that they have about um preview about, okay, title release. So this looks like a data set that has about 62,000 records. So we are going to, again, you can use any data set if you so want. You don't have to um, you don't necessarily have to use this. You can use any data set if you so want. um, so we are going to shoot up, you could use the editors we are going to be using. I'm going to use Jupyter Lab, but you can use any of these modern day editors like VS Code or PyCharm or Atom. Anyone is fine. You don't necessarily have to use a specific tool. And so I'm going to have um, shoot up my Jupyter Lab. I'm just going to go to a particular place I want to be launching my project. Let's see. No, I don't want it here. Let me just go somewhere. Yep. I'll just say ETL pipeline workflow, pipeline workflow. You can name it anything you want. Now that I'm there, I'm going to launch a new notebook. So the first thing we want to do is to the first thing we want to do is to import this data set. And so because we are going to be viewing it in the data frame, we are going to import pandas as PD. So we'll say, let's say data set, which is our the location will be our URL, and I'm going to copy the URL of this by clicking, and I think I'll just right click and copy link. I'm just going to paste it here. That's because I'm too lazy to download, and I'm going to run it. Everything looks like it's fine, and what I'm then going to do is to I'll just say I'll create. Oh, so if I then say I actually want to view this using, say, df is equal to, maybe because it's a CSV, read pd.read CSV, I'm going to have some form of a problem. And that's because the file I actually want to read is a zip file. Okay, so it's loading, it's trying to get the data online, as you can see here, but I think I'm going to get some error. And that's because if you look at it, this is actually a zip file, which is, and is not a CSV file, and actually we don't we cannot read a zip file with pandas, not that I know of, but I'm curious. I'll say pd.read. I don't know if there's zip. I'm going to check. So while it's loading, we'll just wait for when it finishes loading in a bit. So if you notice, it actually gave us some error, and that's because, like I said, we're actually viewing a zip file. You can see it's a multiple file found in zip, only one file per zip. We have these, multiple files, and so I don't know if there's read zip. I'm curious. Oh, there's no zip file. And so with that, we're actually going to read it using a library called zip file. And so we just say from zip file import zip file, and I'm just going to give it an alias of ZF. That's because I'm too lazy to type the zip file. Yep. So oh the next thing I'm going to do is also to import a systems library IO. So the other thing I think I would do is to get the library called request. And so by the time I set my URL to be the variable called database, I can now say response as another variable will be request dot get. So it will be request dot get then database. So it's going to get that particular whatever file is in the URL and store it in response. So I'm going to run it again. It's going to load. It will take some time to load, maybe because of my internet connectivity. Hopefully it doesn't give me an error. So now that it has finished loading and stored it in a variable called response, now I'm going to read it. So I'm going to use the with command. I would say with ZF bracket open bracket close. I'm gonna say IO dot bit bit IO. Then I'll now say response as my attribute dot content and bracket close as, let's say, as res, and I will now say res dot print directory. That's all, and I'll run it. So now that I've done that, you can see now that I now have access to my zip file. You can see this based on each of the files, the date and the size. So this looks like about this is in kilobytes or in bytes. So this looks like 8,991,622 bytes. So that should be like 8 MB. So just to confirm, we can come here to 8.2. Yeah, so this is in bytes. This looks like the file we're actually looking for, right? And so all of these this also, we can actually get this as a dictionary from what we saw here from the preview. We saw the actual dataset and the dictionary. So if you want to, we can get that, but I don't think that is really necessary. Now the next thing we can then do is now to introduce our pandas library in this. This is just to show us to view this content, right? And so the next thing we can then do is to do inside this with command, we will kind of say with we'll just give space, say with, oh no, small letter, with res dot open. And what are we opening? I'm going to open the name of my file I want to open, which is this guy here, right? Control C. I'm going to paste it here as a string. I'll now say as CSV, or you can name it anything. Then I'll now say df is equals pd.read underscore CSV. And what I'm going to read is CSV. Yep. Then I can then go and say df.head. Now you can see that now I have access to my data set. And just to confirm, if you say df alone, it's going to give you some information about the number of rows and the number of columns. So if I say just .head, just give me the first 5 rows, and let's say if I say df.info, you can then see the object types, the data types, and how many of them are not null. This critic score apparently don't have a lot of data on it. You might, depending on the kind of analysis you want to do, you might think of actually either removing it or leaving it as it is, if you so want, or doing like a you do like a normalization, or you fill with the average, the null values with average and or the mean, the median, or the mode of the whole critic score. Again, depending on what you want to do. Out of curiosity, let me just say df.critic score. I think it's critic score dot max value is 10. I can do df.critic score dot the minimum value. I just want to see the outlier. So let's do df.critic. I want to see how dot mean 7.2. Is really interesting. Well, we can do a plot again. This is beyond the scope of this particular project. Remember, we're trying to build an ETL pipeline. So now that I'm done with this, the next thing I would want to do is to now, I've gotten my data, I have opened the data, I have stored the data set in DF. The next thing I would want to do is to send this data somewhere. For all intended purposes, I'm going to use MySQL. So remember that So we are somewhat done with this phase. I want to load this dataset to MySQL. And so in order for you to have some connection with MySQL, you need, or a Postgres SQL or MySQL server, you need what they call a connector. So the first thing I might want to do is to create, let me see, to direct this particular dataset to a database, since a table cannot exist without a database. So let's just say I'll say create an database, and I'll say ETL underscore pipeline, and I'm going to select and run it. Be working. Oh, Control Z. I think it's, oh yeah. Oh, so it has been created before. Many apologies. I didn't know it did that. You can now see it here. So now I've already installed some of this connector. I have my SQL connector. I also have SQL Alchemy. Depending on what you want to use. Just a quick one to show you how to install some of these third-party libraries, just so that you can connect your Python script to a SQL database, and it should be seamless, and they should have an interaction. I'm going to show you guys how you can do that in Anaconda in a little bit. I should have launched my Anaconda navigator. I will show you shortly. And so this is my navigator for Anaconda. You just go to environment. Depending on the I actually created a custom environment, but what I want to use is my base under installed. Like I said, I've already installed it. So if you're actually looking to install, maybe you don't have this library in your installed, as part of your installed libraries, you can go to not installed, then look for it. We already installed it. So if I go to not installed, you can see some of these things are not checked, and so I can say MySQL connector, MySQL already have it, fortunately, and SQL Alchemy. Those are like the two connectors. I think SQL Alchemy is a universal connector for both MySQL, Postgres, Microsoft SQL Server, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go to the install. So I already have it, that's why it's not showing here. So if I go to installed and go to SQL Alchemy, okay, sorry, this is interesting. Okay, SQL-Alchemy. Okay, so SQL Alchemy, it's there. For some weird reason, Alchemy. Oh, that's there. And I already have MySQL connector. And you can see it here. So that's one way to go about it. The other, if you are actually going to use like a code editor, I'd advise you guys to create a virtual environment, either using virtual env, or you can use my favorite is Poetry. Poetry is also a package manager, a virtual environment for installing your dependencies. Let's see. Let me show you guys how to use that. Um, oh, sorry. I'm trying to locate YouTube. ETL pipeline workflow. Um, okay, so I'm going to create. No, I made a mistake. I actually wanted to create a folder on its own, so I can install my dependencies. Let's see. Let's just say Python script, and I'm going to open this folder. Yes, I trust it. So I can create my Python script. Let's just say script.py. Some weird reason. So it will be script.py. Pretty interesting stuff. Then you can do your okay. So the first thing you want to do is to create your virtual environment and do the installation for pandas. So I'm going to already have Poetry installed as a virtual environment on my local machine. Yeah, it's okay. So I'll just say script. Okay, let me just say Python script. Version. This is an ETL pipeline workflow build. The description. You don't have to worry about this. If you're using virtual env, it's not going to ask you anything about this. And so in order for me to activate, I'll just say Python shell is going to activate. And if it is virtual env is going to create a folder for you, but Poetry works different. You don't have to use this. You can decide to use something, a different virtual environment. So it's trying to create one for me. So next thing I want to do is to say Poetry add like your pip install. So Poetry add pandas. What I want is MySQL connector. I think is forgotten. SQL alchemy. What else? I think that should be it. The rest request is part of Python's library. IO is also part of it. Zip file is also part of it. Yeah, and then you can write your codes, and by the time you install, you can do your importation, write your codes, and you are good. There's one other thing I actually wanted to show us. I learned something in that PowerShell. So if I want to create a new file, I'll just say new. So it will be new item, the name, the file, like the file and the file extension. So I can say schema.py, and is it a file or is it a folder? So so if it's file, it's file. If it's a folder, it will be directory, something like that. So let me just say file. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna create a schema.py for me. I think I learned it. Pretty interesting. So let's say I want to create a folder called schema. I'll just say schema, and the item type will be directory. If I remember correctly, it has created a schema uh, folder for me. Again, this is just by the way. The use of PowerShell to create files and folder. So that being said, for the ones that want to use a text editor, you can use VS Code or any other text editor you're comfortable with. So going back to our Jupyter notebook, the next thing we're going to do is to call import I think it's SQL Alchemy. For this purpose, I'm going to use SQL Alchemy. Let's say as SA. Yeah. So the SQL Alchemy will take like a connection string. The connection string. You know what? So I'm going to use both SQL Alchemy and MySQL connector. MySQL. I think it's MySQL connection. Oh, it's MySQL connector dot connector. Connector. So I can just give it an alias as, let's say, connection. I'm gonna run that. So now that I've imported the library, the next thing I'm going to do is to give it some authentication to my server, my SQL server. And so for encryption purpose, it's really advisable that you create a file. So I can see let's see, what should I name it? I can see storage.py. That will be the name of my file. It will be storage.py. Now I'm going to inject some of my authentication there. So for the SQL connection, so it's going to take, we can see MySQL as a variable is equal to connection dot connect. Then the attribute is going to take is the database name, the username, whatever it is, password, whatever the database password is, the host. So of course it's local host, but the database, the exact database you actually want to connect to, then the port number. Now it's really important that these are credentials that you use to log onto your SQL server. So it's really important that you actually hide this so that people don't have access to it. And so I'm going to create this this information elsewhere. So I can say user is equal to then I can say pass, let's say password is equal to what my password is. The database, the name of the database is ETL underscore pipeline. My port is 310. What else? My host is localhost, but the username I'm gonna keep it somewhere local localhost. My username is, again, I'll pause this and input my username and password. So I have done imported I've already imputed some all of this information somewhere. The next thing I'm going to do is just to import this particular Python file as a module or as a library. I can say import, or I can say from storage.py import. What am I importing? User, password, host, database, port. I think that will be all, and run it. So it has already imported. Now I can then, in this username, I'll just enter user. The password will be password. The host will be host. The database will be database, and the port will just be port, and run it. Okay, it was loading. It now shows that it looks like it's connected. And the next thing now, mind you, if I go back to my SQL workbench, if I click on the drop down, you can see that there's no table exists yet, right? In the ETL pipeline. Oh, so this is a ETL pipeline in small letter. I think I should change this back to, I'm going to change my database to, and I can manually impute it here if I so want. Maybe if I don't want to use the information from my storage, I'll say ETL underscore pipeline and run it again. No error, shows that everything looks fine. Now what I can then do is to convert my data frame to a SQL table. And in order for me to do that, I can just say df.to underscore csv, no, sorry, to SQL, and SQL is going to take some attributes, the name of the table. So I can say video underscore game underscore sales. Then it's going to take this particular variable, my SQL. So the information of where I want to save this particular data frame to, so it will be my SQL. I can also say if exists. So if it exists there before, just replace. Then index, I don't want index to be, I want index to be 0, because if I decide to, if I don't put index equal to 0, it's going to give me inclusive of this, and I wouldn't want that. And let me see if I run it, what error it's going to show me. So it's telling me that pandas only support SQL Alchemy connector or database string or SQL DB API 2, and it's showing me some error. Oh, okay, so I think some of the parameters are, so you can see saying select this from this. Not all parameters were used in the SQL table. I wonder why that is. Let me go to my SQL database and see. I'm going to refresh and see if it has loaded anything. We didn't load anything. So I think I'm going to use the SQL alchemy, and I'm just going to um I'm going to or I actually had this issue, and I think it has something to do with the password. I um I think so. And so what I'm going to do is to import a library um called code plus, and I think it has something to do with the the password. I'll say from URL um lib.pass. Yeah, so import quote no quote underscore plus. um oh, so this is a mistake, sorry. Okay, so it works fine, so I can just see encoded, or um let's just see new underscore password is equal to code plus, then my password. um so password, and I'm now going to change this my password to new password. I think if I am now, so I'm gonna do a try, an exception. What is it saying? They're saying access for user root at this local host. Some weird reason. I wonder what is wrong here. It's interesting. Hey, let me run it again. Okay, I think I need to refresh this. Let me just go back to that. So I'm going to say uh, uh, I'm going to restart kernel. It's going to take time and run all cells. I'll restart. It's going to take some time. I'm going to pause when it's done. Oh, doesn't look like. Okay, it's going to take time. So I've restarted and it's still showing me the same error. I think most likely it's something that has to do with I can't really tell what exactly is the issue. But I'm going to use SQL alchemy. It is usually works, but for some weird reason it isn't working now. mm, it's really interesting. So I think I'm just going to comment this, and I'm going to use the SQL alchemy. So the SQL alchemy works the same, but it will take um so this it works differently in SQL alchemy. As I can say, connection underscore string as a variable, and I'll use the f string MySQL plus MySQL connector then Okay, so everything is inside. Then hyphen forward slash the username, which is user um so this is supposed to be password, which is password. Then at my local host, which is host, then hyphen the port number, which I said is port. The next thing is the name of the database, which is database. And so I can now see a variable called engine will now be equal to SA, which is my SQL Alchemy dot create engine. Then I'm going to put my connection string there. Let's see if it's gonna work. I think there might be some error as well. The last time I tried this, looking like there's a connection. So now I'm going to do so it's not giving me any error. So I'm going to use the try and accept. So if this works, I would say print successfully loaded into my SQL database. Except I'm going to say exception as E. Then I'm just going to say print f string error occurred. Then I'm gonna say E, and yeah, that'll be it. So let me try this and see. Okay, so he said my SQL is not oh sorry, I'm supposed to use engine here. So yeah, so there's an issue of password here. I remember this. So I'm gonna use this code plus. I think it has something to do with the encoding of the password. So I'll try it again. So it's loading, shows that it's doing something, and let's wait and see if it's going to load. So as you can see, it has printed successfully loaded to my SQL database. So most likely it's successful. So now I'll go to my SQL database and refresh. And you can see there's something there. Pretty interesting. So what I can then do is to say just to pass a query, I'll say use ETL underscore pipeline. Let's see, and I'll say select all the tables from video game underscore sales, just to see now look at all the data, which is pretty interesting. And so I can also do a count just to see if the data was completely loaded on the database. So we have about 64,016. Just to do a little bit of confirmation, we'll go to our our data set and just check. um so we have 64,016 titles or rows of data, which is what we have here, just to do a confirmation that okay, everything loaded completely. And so the next thing now we are now going to do is the last part. So we've done the script, we've loaded it using SQL Alchemy to our MySQL database. We've queried to test that okay, this data we got here is what we have here now in our database. The next thing is just the connection for visualization. So I'm going to shoot up Power BI, and mind you, you need for Power BI, you also need an ODBC driver. So you need to install that. Once you do that, I think you are good. While waiting for the Power BI to shoot up, let's just give it a moment. It will just take some time. So my Power BI is up. I'm going to blank report. Let's see. So I'll do get data, and we're working with my SQL database. I'll go to more, and a pop-up is going to come up, and looking for different data source. So there's all, and you can type here, or you just come down here, MySQL database. That's what I want to connect to. So it's going to ask me for some credentials, and so if you don't have the ODBC drivers, it's not going to work. So what I want is localhost. So the server will be localhost. Now from experience, I'll also put the port number, and the database is ETL underscore pipeline. There's advanced options where you can write SQL commands, you understand. So if you want to do custom query, you just want to get like a custom table, you can do that if you want to, but I don't need that. I'll click on OK, and fingers crossed, hopefully it connects. So as you can see, the navigator for my Power Query is on. By the time I click and select my table, you can see my table, and so you just click on transform. It's going to transform. It will shoot up my Power Query editor, where you can do a lot of crazy stuff with it. And so part of the crazy stuff I think I'm going to do is just to I'm going to rename this back to video game sales. I don't need the images, right? It's not going to be important for any of my analysis, so I can just delete. Okay, so you can see the critic score. So what I can do here is, if there is no score, I'll just put 0 again. NA sales, so it shows that you see this, it just shows you that there is empty, or there's issues with the so if the blue, I think this is green, if it's not complete the edge like this, it shows you that there's a problem. In order for you to visualize it more, you can come to view, and do show column profile. Oh no, not column profile, I think distribution. Okay, so you can also show quantity, and it's going to show you what is valid, what is empty. So like the critic score, you have 45% empty, and if you just hover around it, it will tell you the number of empty rows. And personally, I think I can just put 0. This is complete, no error. This you have 16 empty cells. If you even click here, you can see the null, and so you could just replace it with 0 if you so want. Since these are numbers and because it's not there, just replace it with 0. um and so what you can do across multiple rows is to you can multiple select, and I don't want to move anything here, right? um yeah, I can multiple select and go to home, go to replace values, and I'll just say null. It will be one time, and value to find, I'll just say null replace with 0, and it's gonna do that for me. So you can see I've multiple select across multiple table column, and it's gonna automatically fill that for me. I don't think I need to fill this, there's no need for that. And you're done. You can then do your analysis. So you could do some corrections if there are um repeated name of game names. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any repetition, there's just 1 and 2. Call of Duty, yeah, this doesn't look like there's repetition per se. um yeah, so far it looks okay. And that will be it. You could then do your visualization and some form of analytics if you so want. So if you also want to load it to Power Query, that's Excel Power Query, you can actually do that as well. With that, we have come to the end of this particular ETL pipeline workflow build. And the reason why I'm actually doing this is just to show you the power of the tool integration of what data a data analyst have in his arsenal. And so I hope this helps you guys. If you do um find this particular video interesting, please, I urge that you like, you subscribe, and you share with others so it can benefit others as well. It's going to give me more motivation, because I am actually um maybe not being paid for this. I am actually trying to share my experience as much as possible with people out there that are just starting to learn tools in data analytics and data analytics analytical skills, and they are finding difficulty to um, you know practice. So my goal is actually to give people that near work experience, and to show also the possibilities, and they are actually limitless. The possibilities in the application of your analytical skills and the tools in your arsenal are actually limitless. Um, you could actually spin this particular ETL pipeline workflow in. You hear something like Snowflake, data warehouse, Azure, Databricks, DBT, and all of this stuff. So this is the same first principle process they actually use. I think if I have more time, I'm going to actually so this is a one-time build, right? Let's say in case, let's say they keep updating the data, how do you then do it in such a way that the script will keep feeding SQL, and SQL will keep feeding um Power BI with the latest update. You can actually run locally a cron job, maybe using I think um Windows 11 has some form of a cron job that you can actually spin. So what that cron job will do is that you just set a time where this script will be running, and each time it's running, it will be bringing, if there's any new update, it will give, it will get the latest data, it's going to upload, and it's going to display. This will also display. So you would actually run it in such a way that you can automate this particular process after doing it manually. So that's why this is automation, this is still like a manual process. So in hopefully, if I'm going to do a subsequent video, I'm going to show us how to do this particular, build this particular ETL pipeline workflow in automation locally. Then I don't know if I'll have time to actually spin this online, but if I do, I'll also show us as well. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.